All right, I think we are recording and good to go. So I just want to say welcome and thank you guys all for coming today. This is the CREEQ Citizen Science Initiative informational webinar. As Andrea mentioned, I am the research assistant and a graduate student at the SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry. So for anyone who's just joining us, all of the attendee video and audio are going to be off by default and throughout the presentation. If you have any questions, excuse me, please put them in the chat box and make sure you send the question so everyone can see it. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session and we'll go through those questions there. And if you have any other questions that come to mind during that Q&A session, you can always speak up and let us know then as well. And as I just mentioned, the webinar is being recorded, so we will be able to share a link to the webinar so you guys can watch it again if you would like, or share with others that you think would also be interested. There we go. So an overview of what's going to be covered in this presentation. I'm going to first go through some background. Andrea mentioned a little bit of that before, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. Then we're going to answer some frequently asked questions about the project and the Citizen Science Initiative. And then we're going to go through an example of the CREEQ survey in practice, and then the Q&A. So for some background, the CREEQ study is an application of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, or DEC. It was a study that they published in 2015 where the DEC field crews performed an assessment of recreational usability at their routine stream monitoring locations. And this assessment included both an evaluation of perceived recreational usability and a report of the physical features of the stream. So these evaluations were then compared to the biochemical measurements that are traditionally used for stream monitoring and water quality assessment. And so we compared, or they compared these things to identify relationships between the visible and physical attributes of the stream and what is traditionally measured. They did this because the traditional measurements are very time and resource intensive. So if we can have a quicker way of identifying where potential problem areas are, that's going to be really beneficial. So from this study, they found that there were strong correlations between perceived recreational usability and some of these traditional measurements, like nutrients, suspended chlorophyll A, which is a measurement for the amount of algae present, and turbidity, which can affect the perceived water clarity. And then there were also significant predictors of impaired recreational perceptions, which were water clarity, biofilm, and odor. And so, as I mentioned, the implications of doing the visual evaluations is that it can generate a supplemental data source as compared to the traditional measurements. So the CREEQ Project, which is the Citizen Recreational Evaluation of Environmental Quality, or CREEQ, it is the public accessible version of the survey that was performed by the DEC field teams. We wanted to open this up because everyone who uses the streams and recreates in them is going to have a better view and constant contact with that water. And so it would be a really good resource to be able to get that information while you guys are there. So the CREEQ initiative is a lot simpler than many other citizen science initiatives, since there's no specific training requirements, no needed extra supplies or sample collections, and there's no minimum participation requirements. So you can perform this evaluation at any stream that you visit, whenever you would like, and however many times you would like. The overall goal of the CREEQ project is to develop a citizen science tool to generate the supplemental data source for stream water quality monitoring efforts. This survey and citizen science tool was developed using Esri's Survey 123 web form. This was done so that we could geospatially link the stream assessments to the location to where the survey was performed. Now I'm going to answer some frequently asked questions. So what's covered in the survey? First, you'll be presented with a cover letter and informed consent. This will just go over an overview of the survey and your role and rights as a participant. And then there will be an About You section where you will generate a unique user ID and answer some basic demographic questions. The user ID will be used to estimate the average number of surveys that each participant performs, while participants can still remain anonymous. Then you will report basic site information. So this will include the date the survey was performed, the location, time, and current weather conditions. Then the stream conditions evaluation. In this section is where you will perform the visual evaluation of stream conditions. So it was designed to guide your focus through the different features and parts of the streams, which include the general stream conditions, where you'll be asked about items like trash or amount of algae that can occur in many different areas. Then the stream bank, water column, and stream bed. You'll see how these are broken up when we go through the example later on. And then you will perform a evaluation of the recreational suitability and your willingness to participate in those recreational activities, given the conditions of the stream that you evaluated before. And then we'll ask you to give your overall impressions, which include the aesthetics of the stream, and then identify up to 3 factors that negatively influenced your opinion of the aesthetics. And then at the end, we ask that you upload any photos of the stream and give us any comments that you would like to share with us that weren't covered in the general survey beforehand. So you might be asking now, why should I participate? So as I mentioned, your opinion of water quality and recreational usability is an important foundation for the care of New York waterways. By participating, you would be supporting an innovative and community-focused environmental science research project. And this research has the potential to assist stream water quality monitoring efforts that can improve the protections of natural waterways and all of their best uses, which include recreation and wildlife. And you would have the opportunity to become part of the CREEQ crew, which will be a widespread network of citizen science volunteers. So, how do you participate? All you need is a smartphone, access to a stream, and interest. So to access the survey, you just have to follow this link, or you can scan the QR code that I have presented here. But you can also easily find it if you don't have these things on hand. If you just go into a web browser and search CREEQ Survey ArcGIS or CREEQ Survey Survey 123, and it should be one of the first options that pop up there. So once you do have the survey open, it only takes about 5 to 10 minutes to complete. It may take a little bit longer the first time that you go through the survey, just because it's very important that you read each question, the question subheadings, and the response categories very carefully. But as you see when we go through the example, it becomes pretty straightforward once you know what you're looking for. So you can perform the survey anytime that you visit a stream. We encourage you to do it anytime that you're already going to be out there just to recreate or you know, go for a boat ride or fishing or whatever you like to do. And you can participate as many times as you would like, but we ask not to do more than 1 survey per location per day, just to prevent any repetition. And of course, participants must be 18 years or older. So one of the big questions that has come up is, can you participate during the COVID-19 pandemic? And our answer is absolutely. We just encourage you that you do so responsibly. Thankfully, many of the New York parks have remained open, and we hope that your participation will be a way for you to enjoy the outdoors. But as I mentioned, we still would have to ask that you follow the New York regulations. So do not perform the survey in groups and only visit parks in small groups of only household members. Please practice social distancing, recreate locally, and keep your park visits short. And if the parks appear to be very crowded, it would probably be best to leave and come back at a time where it's not going to be as busy. And as always, please wear a face mask. So you can perform surveys at any stream in Central New York. We encourage you to do this at public stream locations, since these will be areas that you will be already recreating in. But also it would simplify our follow-up process, which I can explain a little bit later. So the public locations include public fishing rights, easements, state and municipal parks, public boat launches and hand launches. And if you are in need of ideas of where to go to perform the survey, we developed a map series of public access locations. If you go to this website that I have listed here at the bottom, it'll take you to this page where the maps are going to be organized by recreational activity. And if you click on each of those tabs, it'll show you a little bit, clearer, not as messy looking map for each of those activities. And then you can click on any of the points on the map for more information and detailed maps for each of those sites. So once you perform a survey, how will the data be used? Once a survey is received by us, it will automatically go into the public CREEQ data portal, which is a GIS database, but all of your responses from the demographics and about you section won't be included there, so you will still remain confidential and anonymous. But the research team will use this information to perform follow-up sampling, where we will travel to the locations where the surveys were performed to collect water quality samples, and also perform the survey to ground truth what was being reported beforehand. And these follow-ups will be performed within 3 days of when we receive a survey or before a rain event, just so there aren't any major changes in the conditions between when the public version was performed and when the field team is there. And using this data that we will collect during the follow-up sampling, we will be able to compare the traditional water quality measurements to these visual evaluations as was done with the DEC study. So to see where your survey is going to go, it's going to be here in this CREEQ data portal. And again, if you would like to access that, you can go to the link that's right there at the bottom of the screen. And I can share these all with you as well after this webinar is over. So in this in this portal, you will be able to see all the surveys that volunteers and the field crew members have performed. And like the other maps, just click on a point and it'll come up with all of the information that was there. So let's go through an example of how to perform the CREEQ survey. We're only going to go through the stream conditions, recreational activities, and overall impression sections. And I just want to preface this by saying that this is just an example, and how you would perform the evaluation may be slightly different based on your own personal experience and opinion of recreational suitability. But I just wanted to give you guys this opportunity to walk through it once. So the example I chose is the Lake Torch Spring Run in Pennsylvania. I chose this because it is way outside of our sampling range, but also it is fairly similar to many of the streams that you may encounter here in Central New York. So I'll give you about 10 seconds to look over this stream before we get started. Okay, so first we'll go through the general stream conditions. So first you'll be asked to identify how much trash is in or along the stream. And for this example, there does not appear to be any, so you'd select none. But if you were to select one or two or any of the other options, you would then be asked to identify where the trash is located. So that could either be the stream bank, stream bed, or floating in the water. And actually, Jillian and I, my research assistant, when we were out this week, we found a fishing line that was going into the water hanging from a tree limb. So we're just like, where do we put that? So we added another option just in case you guys come into that. So next, how much algae is in the stream? Looking at this example, we could classify it as moderate because there is, a decent amount attached to the stream bed. But again, this is going to be based on your own opinion. And then, of course, for a photo, we can't identify the odor, but you would be asked the strength of the odor that is associated with the stream. Stream bank. So how much or which describes the amount of stream bank vegetation. So for this example, we could call it moderate since there is a thick growth of vegetation going all the way along the stream bank, but it isn't so dense that you wouldn't be able to access the stream. Then you'll be asked if you can see any pipes or storm drainage outlets going into or near the stream. In this example, we can say no. But if there were any, we would ask you to identify how many there are and approximately what size. Water column. So the water column refers to the area between the surface of the water and the bottom of the stream. So the first question that you would be asked is water clarity. In this example, we can say it is very clear because there is not a cloudy or dark appearance to the water and you can still see the stream bed. Water color. For this example, we can say that there is no apparent color because the water appears to be clear. But if there were a color, we would like you to report that. For the stream bed, the amount of aquatic plants that are present. Here we can say it is minimal since there are just a few small clumps that are growing here and some that are going out of the water. Biofilm. This refers to a combination of algae, moss, or slimes that are covering the stream bed or like any of like the big rocks that are submerged. So in this example, if you look closely at that rock that's kind of towards the front of or the bottom of the photo rather, we could say that it's moderate because it looks like it's fairly well covered and there are some other spots in the stream that look the same. Next is the recreational activities. These activities include hiking, paddling, motorboating, fishing, wading, and swimming. I'm just going to go through the example for fishing, but it would be these same two questions that you'd be asked for all of these activities. First, you'll be asked how suitable is the stream for fishing? So you would select that on a scale from very suitable to not suitable. And then we also have the option for not applicable. You would only want to select not applicable if the stream was too narrow or too shallow. For example, for this stream, you wouldn't put a motorboat here. We only want you to select not applicable if, regardless of the conditions that we asked you to evaluate earlier, you wouldn't be able to do this activity anyways. So as for the suitability scale, this is only going to be based on if there's aquatic plant overgrowth or algae or just a horrible odor that would make you not want to do this. And then if you do select that the stream is suitable to some degree to participate in the activity, we would ask, given these conditions, would you, if you could at this time, participate in that? So one of the last things that we would be asking you is to give your overall impressions of the stream, which include if there were any aesthetic problems. I just selected minor aesthetic problems for this example, just so we would hypothetically be prompted with the ranking questions. which if you do select, if there were any aesthetic problems, you'll be asked to select up to 3 different factors that influenced your opinion of the aesthetics. And after that, of course, you'd be able to upload any photos that you see or that you have of the stream. And that wraps up our presentation. If you guys have any questions, now's the time we can go through and answer them. Let's see, I'm gonna open up the chat. All right, looks like no one has any questions. I'm gonna give you one more chance if you want, just anything comes to mind, feel free to just speak up.
How long are you doing the survey for?
We're going to be accepting responses through the end of August.
Okay. Seems pretty easy to do if you want to go outside.